Every few months, a journalist comes to Lancaster County. They drive out from Philadelphia or New York. They park their car at the edge of a dirt road, and they watch. They watch a woman hanging laundry on a line in the early morning. They watch her carry water from a well. They watch her move through her kitchen without a microwave, without a food processor, without a dishwasher, without anything that plugs into a wall. And every single one of them writes the same thing when they go home, that the women they watched seemed calm, that the house was immaculate, that the food was extraordinary, that the children were settled, and that they could not explain why any of it worked the way it did. I can explain it. I grew up in it. The rules that govern how an Amish woman runs her household are not written down in any book outsiders can buy. They are not posted on the internet. They are passed from grandmother to mother to daughter, in the kitchen, in the garden, at the washboard, over decades of daily repetition, until the rule stops being a rule and becomes simply the way things are done. Some of them will seem extreme to a modern household. Some of them will seem obvious once you hear them. All of them work, every single one. I am name. I farm in location, and I was raised by women who followed these rules without question and ran households that outsiders consistently described as the most ordered, the most peaceful, and the most productive they had ever seen. Today, I'm going to walk you through 20 of those rules, the ones that outsiders find most unbelievable, the ones that explain everything the journalists could not. An Amish woman is in her kitchen before 5 in the morning, not because anyone told her to be, because the household runs on food, and food takes time, and time does not wait. Bread needs to rise. The stove needs to be lit. Water needs to be heated. By the time the rest of the household comes to the table, the kitchen has already been working for 2 hours. Outsiders find this extreme. Amish women find the alternative, a household scrambling for breakfast, more exhausting than the early start. Every item in an Amish pantry has a location, a specific shelf, a specific container, a specific position. Not because of aesthetics, because a pantry that is searched rather than known wastes time every single day. An Amish woman knows without looking that the salt is on the second shelf left, the baking soda beside it, the dried beans in the third crock from the right. Outsiders walk into these pantries and describe them as museum-like. The women who run them describe them as efficient. Commercial cleaning products, commercial condiments, commercial baked goods, commercial preserved foods. An Amish woman makes what she can, buys what she must, and maintains a clear understanding of which is which. This rule is not about poverty. Many Amish households are financially comfortable. It is about the understanding that buying a thing you can make is paying someone else for your own labor. The money stays in the household. The skill stays in the household. Both compound over time. Amish women do not clean when things look dirty. They clean on a schedule, in a sequence that does not vary. Monday is wash day in most traditional households. Tuesday is ironing. The floors are swept every morning before breakfast. The kitchen is scrubbed every evening after the last meal. The order matters because a sequence that is always the same requires no decision making. Decision fatigue is not a concept Amish women use, but they have solved for it completely. When the sequence is fixed, the energy goes into the work, not into deciding what the work should be. This is the rule outsiders find most foreign. In an Amish household, throwing away usable food, usable fabric, usable material of any kind is not a neutral act. It is a failure of stewardship. Bread that is going stale becomes breadcrumbs or bread pudding. Vegetable scraps go into stock. Fat from cooking is rendered and stored. Fabric too worn for clothing becomes quilting material and then eventually cleaning rags. Nothing leaves the household as waste until every possible use has been extracted from it. The result is a household that spends dramatically less than its income would suggest is possible. An Amish woman does not plan meals from recipes and then buy ingredients. She looks at what is in the pantry, the root cellar, and the garden, and plans meals from what exists. This single inversion eliminates food waste almost entirely, eliminates the grocery store trip that produces impulse purchases, and develops a depth of cooking skill that recipe-dependent cooking never produces. A woman who can make a full meal from whatever is available can feed her family in any circumstance. A woman who cooks from recipes is dependent on the grocery store being stocked. Amish children do not have a separate schedule from the household. They work alongside the adults from the time they can walk and carry something without dropping it. A 4-year-old carries small items, sweeps, hands tools. A 7-year-old helps with food preparation, animal feeding, basic cleaning. A 12-year-old can run significant portions of the household independently. Outsiders observe this, and some find it troubling. What they are seeing is not child labor in the exploitative sense. It is the transmission of capability. A child who has cooked meals, grown food, and managed household tasks since childhood enters adulthood with a competence that most modern 25-year-olds do not have. This rule sounds simple. In practice, it is one of the most countercultural things about an Amish household. A task that is begun is completed before another task is begun. The laundry that is started in the morning is washed, hung, dried, brought in, folded, and put away before the day ends. The bread that is started rises, is shaped, rises again, is baked, and is cooled before the kitchen moves to the next project. The incompleteness that characterizes most modern households, the half-finished projects, the loads of laundry sitting in the dryer for 3 days, the dishes left to soak, does not exist in a household running on this rule. Outsiders describe these homes as orderly. This is why. Every Amish woman tends a kitchen garden regardless of the size of her property. The garden is not a hobby. It is a food source, a medicine source, and a preservation source. Herbs for cooking and for home remedies. vegetables for fresh eating and for canning, flowers for bees that pollinate the food crops. The garden is tended every day, in every season that permits it, because a household connected to its own food production is a household that is not entirely dependent on what the store chooses to stock and what the price happens to be that week. An Amish household keeps an accounting, not in the sense of software or spreadsheets, in the sense of a woman who knows, without looking at a ledger, approximately what has been spent and on what in any given month. This knowledge is not passive. It is active monitoring developed through decades of managing a household on a fixed resource. Outsiders who ask Amish women about budgeting are often surprised to find that the answer is not a system or a tool, but simply attention. Sustained, consistent, daily attention to where resources are going. Rule 11. Nothing is purchased that cannot be paid for. Immediately, debt in an Amish household is viewed with deep suspicion, not because of a specific religious doctrine about interest, but because of a practical understanding of what debt does to a household. A household making monthly payments on things it has already consumed is a household sending its future labor to a lender. The discipline of purchasing only what can be paid for now, with money already in hand, produces a household that is financially stable across generations in a way that income alone does not explain. Before an Amish woman goes to the pharmacy, she goes to the pantry. Ginger for nausea, elderberry for immune support, comfrey for bruising, garlic for infection, honey for wounds and coughs. This is not a rejection of modern medicine for serious illness. It is a first response system for common ailments that has worked for generations and costs almost nothing. The pharmacy is for what the garden cannot address. The garden addresses more than most modern households would expect. 1 day per week, work stops, not slows, stops. No cooking beyond what was prepared the day before. No cleaning, no projects, no productivity. For 1 full day, the household rests. Outsiders who study productivity find this rule paradoxically efficient. The research on rest and cognitive function suggests that a mind and body given genuine rest 1 day per week performs better across the remaining 6 than one that runs continuously. Amish women did not read that research. They inherited the Shah. Conclusion. An Amish woman's relationship with clothing is fundamentally different from the relationship the modern fashion industry has spent a century trying to instill in every household. Clothing is made or purchased to be worn for years. It is repaired when it tears. It is let out or taken in when bodies change. It is handed down when outgrown. It is repurposed when too worn to wear. A woman who has been sewing and mending her family's clothing for 40 years has spent a fraction of what a modern household spends on clothing and has never once experienced the specific anxiety of feeling like what she owns is out of style. When tomatoes are at their peak in August, an Amish woman is canning them, not buying tomato products in November at 3 times the August price. The same with corn, beans, peaches, apples, berries, and every other seasonal food. preservation at peak, canning, fermenting, drying, root cellaring, means the household eats well year-round from food purchased or grown at the lowest cost point of the year. The pantry is stocked in summer and fall. It is drawn down through winter and spring. The cycle repeats every year without exception. In a household without running water historically, every drop carried a cost in labor. That understanding produces a discipline around water use that persists even in Amish households with modern plumbing. Water used to rinse vegetables is used again to water the garden. Dishwater is used to clean the porch before it is discarded. Bath water is shared in sequence, cleanest to least clean, before it is emptied. This is not deprivation. It is the recognition that a resource that costs labor or money to obtain should be fully used before it is discarded. An Amish woman feeds whoever comes to her door, without advance notice, without special preparation, without apology for the simplicity of what is offered. This requires two things: a pantry that is always stocked with the basics of a real meal, and an absence of the anxiety about presentation that prevents most modern households from offering genuine hospitality. The meal is simple. It is real. It is offered without hesitation. Outsiders who experience this describe it as the most welcoming thing they have encountered, not because of what was served, but because of the unconditional nature of the offering. An Amish woman who bakes bread does not follow a recipe. She has made bread so many times that her hands know the dough by feel, know the oven by smell, know the timing by sound. This automaticity is the product of repetition so complete that the skill no longer requires conscious attention. The mental energy freed by automatic skill is available for the aspects of the task that require judgment. Outsiders watch an Amish woman cook and describe it as effortless. It is not effortless. It is the product of 10,000 repetitions compressed into what looks like ease. Rule 19. The evening ends with tomorrow. Already prepared, before an Amish woman goes to bed, tomorrow is started. The bread that will rise overnight is set. The beans that need soaking are in water. The clothes that need to be washed are sorted. The kitchen is clean. The stove is ready. The morning does not begin with confusion about what needs to happen, because the evening before was used to remove that confusion in advance. Outsiders describe Amish mornings as peaceful. This is the reason. The chaos was managed the night before. This is perhaps the most countercultural rule on this list, and the one that explains the most. An Amish woman does not measure her household against her neighbors. She does not experience the specific modern anxiety of feeling that what she has is insufficient because someone else has more. Her standard is not the neighborhood or the magazine or the social media feed. Her standard is her own household running as well as it can with what it has. This single absence, the absence of comparison as a metric, produces a household contentment that outsiders notice immediately and struggle to name. They describe the women they meet as peaceful. What they are seeing is a life lived against an internal standard rather than an external one. You have just heard 20 rules. They look different on the surface. Early mornings and pantry organization and debt avoidance and bread baking and water reuse. They are the same rule expressed 20 different ways. Every resource that enters this household, time, money, food, water, fabric, skill, is treated as finite, valuable, and worth using completely before it is discarded. Nothing is wasted. Nothing is replaced before its use is exhausted. Nothing is borrowed from the future to pay for the present. Nothing is measured against what someone else has, rather than against what the household actually needs. This is not a collection of techniques. It is a coherent philosophy of household management that has sustained families across generations without debt, without waste, and without the quiet financial anxiety that characterizes most modern households, regardless of their income. You do not have to adopt all 20 rules tonight. Pick one, the one that rang truest when you heard it, the one that named something you already knew but had not put into practice. Run it for 30 days in your own household and tell me in the comments what changed. Tell me below which rule surprised you most, which one you already follow, and which one you think your household needs most right now. And if your own grandmother followed a rule like any of these, one she passed down without explaining why, share it. Those inherited rules are exactly the knowledge that disappears when nobody writes it down. I read every single one. Next time I'm walking you through the Amish fix for your electric bill, the single habit that eliminates the electricity your house is consuming every night while your family sleeps for $0 and 4 minutes of time before bed. Subscribe so you do not miss it. Until then, pick one rule, run it for 30 days, see what it does to your household. That is the Amish fix.